Hello, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Hi, Mark. Don Motley. I'm the chair of the Legislative Screening Committee.
Hi, Don.
You can see the names of the other people on your screen, I hope,
Yep.
and when they speak and ask questions, you'll certainly hear from them.
Sure.
I'm going to try to have about a half-hour conversation with you here. I'd like for you to take the first 5 minutes or so and tell us about you and why you're running and why you think you can win, both the primary and in the fall. And then we'll take questions from the floor.
Okay. Great. Thanks for having. Yep. Can everybody hear me okay? Does this sound okay? Great.
Yep.
Okay. So thanks for having me. Thanks to all of you for having me. I am an Ohio State graduate. I come from a lower middle class family. Both my grandfathers were coal miners in northeastern Pennsylvania. Parents, with outhouses as kids. No, they didn't go to college when they graduated from high school. They went to work. But, we lived in a lower middle class family, but we lived in the neighborhood, so to speak. So we didn't think that much of that back then. Now I think we think a little more about that class distinction. Like you, I did all the right things, kept my nose clean, applied myself in school, respected my parents, the 10 Commandments, tried to do the right thing, no drugs, no arrests, that just what normal Americans do. I went to Ohio State, graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, summa cum laude. I went to work for companies like IBM and EDS, and I started my own company in 1996. That company, Fast Switch, created well over 2,000 jobs in Ohio alone, and we did business in 35 or 36 states. I sold the majority of that business at the end of 2019 to my two key managers. They split that business pretty much in half, one in Detroit, one in Columbus, and those companies renamed now are prospering. So when I think of living the American dream, which I did, I also think those companies are kind of living the American dream in terms of a life after me that hopefully will be better than the life I gave that company. So we continue to employ more and more Ohioans, and in this case, Michiganders. I'm an outsider. I'm a citizen candidate, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a lawyer. I've never run for office before. I'm the furthest thing from a politician. So that's pretty much my background. If you'd like to understand my why, I'd go into that, but I'm going to let you direct the conversation because that's what we do here, I think. Don, I think you're muted.
Yes, I want to make sure you were finished with your opening statement there. Let me start by asking, I had heard of you before today, but most people in Ohio hadn't, would be my guess. They certainly heard of a lot of other of our Senate candidates, certainly the top 4 or 5 they've heard of by now. So I have to ask, what is your strategy to win both the primary and the general election, and how are you going to pull ahead of and distinguish yourself from all these candidates that have already been on the airwaves or in the mail or in the newspapers for many weeks or months?
So our internal polling shows me right about the middle of the pack, spending about 1/6 of the next nearest spender, which I believe is Bernie. We didn't have any numbers on Matt, but with the recent media buy, he's probably up there with Bernie. We are running a grassroots campaign. We're doing radio ads now, and we're going to probably continue to do those right on through the May primary. We've got events booked, and we are going to continue to push on the media in our media buys on the radio. I am not going to try to compete on money. I have said for many years that I think we need money out of politics. It corrupts it. And so I'd be a hypocrite to to then go and try to be raising lots of money. I'm funding this campaign on my own. I'm putting my own money in, but we're doing it on a very as needed basis. So I'm not going to dump money in and make it look like I've got more support or more financial backing than I do. We're paying as we go. You'll see we spent more money this last reporting quarter than we did the quarter before, and I'm assuming that that will continue. And we're running what I'd call, as an entrepreneur, we're running a guerrilla marketing kind of campaign. We're doing things that other people either won't do or can't do. For example, some of the things we're doing with the Ohio Republican Party Central Committee. And I think, Don, to answer the second part of your question, I am the most electable candidate of all the candidates running in the general election. My citizen candidate background, my lower middle class upbringing, and my relationship, especially in the rural counties with these folks, it's pretty heartwarming to me, and it's pretty encouraging to me. I really don't see any of the other candidates being able to connect in the general election with independent and crossover potential voters.
Any questions from the floor?
Yeah, Mark, Bill Schmidt. I'm gonna. The rest of the group is probably tired of me talking about this, but two things. How do you feel about Trump's? Yeah, not about how you thought about it.
Bill, you were breaking up there. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. How do you feel about Trump's policies and his agenda? And then which of the policies that would you like to have reinstated after Biden's thrown them all out?
I would say that I am 100% behind President Trump's policies, except for the fact that we spent too much money. Now, that wasn't his responsibility per se. That's, spending is of Congress, but I think he could have done more to shut down spending. We spend way too much money. We're printing money like we're Venezuela. We're seeing the inflation from it now. And even our current sitting senator, Rob Portman, is okay with adding to our debt. I'm not. A debt of $30 trillion, it may be unrecoverable. And we're going to monetize that debt. We're going to make 401ks of Ohioans worthless, and that's just that's not something I believe can stand.
Mark, Nazar here.
Okay.
Hi, Nazar.
Thanks for your time. Just to follow up on that, how would you rein in the spending, understanding that unfortunately both parties talk a lot about cutting spending, and then when they go to Congress, sometimes politics gets in the way.
Right. So I've got, I don't know if any of you've seen it. I've got a 21-point policy guide. I'm the only candidate that has anything like that written down as a commitment to voters, putting a stake in the ground. That debt question is answered in there. While I would like to be able to say we wave a magic wand and we do away with, departments and things like that, that is red meat for the base, but it really isn't practical. So what I've said is let's do something that's possible and saleable, and that would be to reduce spending by 1% a year. We need kind of a Dave Ramsey money makeover for the federal government in terms of spending. We've just got to tighten the belt. 1% is doable, and I think it would be very hard for anybody to argue against that, especially with the inflation that we're going through right now and the absolute insanity financially that we're experiencing. I also think that if you do that and it takes off, that we could ultimately end up spending more or cutting spending more than 1% a year if we really worked on it. So it would be a reasonable approach, but one that I would be very vocal about. We we fall as Republicans. We fall for this shiny metal object called tax policy, and we spend a lot of time talking about taxes, and we argue with Democrats over it. We need to be, in my mind, we need to be spending at least 10 times the amount of effort and vocalization of cutting spending that we do talking about tax policy.
Hey, Mark. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Mark. Great. How are you?
Good, thank you. So here's my question. There are some parallels between your campaign and what President Trump did, in that policy-wise, you have a lot of really great ideas, and you and I have had both online and offline many
Right.
substantive conversations, which I really appreciate. But some of the stuff you put out on social media is just, I'm sorry for this, cringeworthy. And I'll give you one example just from, from yesterday. Quote, Mike DeWine doesn't deserve to be reelected. He deserves to be investigated. Now, I understand the sentiment. I do. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. How is that helpful to Republicans up and down the ticket in Ohio to call the guy that will probably be our standard bearer in 2022, someone that needs to be investigated, and there was another post where you called him corrupt? How does that help?
How does it help? I think it helps by being willing to call out the problems we have in our own party with our own elected officials. I believe that we will be saving the Republican Party. We're a party that's going out of business if we don't do this, okay? We're a party, especially in Ohio, that's incredibly corrupt. We're a party of Larry Householder working with Jane Timken being tied at the hip. And it's like insiders are basically telling the grassroots voters, don't worry about that. We've got that handled. We've got primaries that are being rigged for insiders. This is a rigged game, and people are starting to understand it. They understand that the insider class is manipulating everything in our party. Now do you, so here's why I'm doing this. I expect to win the primary election. When I do, because the first thing Tim Ryan is going to say to me is, you are part of a corrupt party. The things that I'm talking about are all out in the public domain, Mark. So Tim Ryan's going to say, you're part of a corrupt party. And I want to say, you know what? I am the one who's been calling it out, and I have been putting solutions in place to fix it. Have any of you seen our recent mailer? Did anybody get the recent mailer? So we're working on finding citizen candidates to run for state central committee. That is a rigged game. When state central committee members can endorse themselves, that's a rigged game. And we've got to fix it, or else we're never going to attract younger me's. I think we need me's in this party, more me's, but we also need more younger me's. I'm 63 years old. Right? I've never run for office before. We need some younger me's running, or we're going to be out of business. I'll tell you, if Mike DeWine is the nominee, God bless him, he may win, but we are going to lose people in our party.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this as a follow-up to that. How does the problem that you are talking about, how does running for U.S. Senate solve that? Why not run for a local office or a member of the Central Committee that you're pointing out, or any other local office where, if you will, the rubber meets the road?
Because I'm going to be honest with you here, and I don't want to sound arrogant. I decided to run because I believe we're the greatest country in the world, the greatest state in the world, and the greatest party. And all three of those have been hijacked from us. Right? And I'm not sure any of you probably wouldn't disagree with America, but you disagree with the state, and you disagree with probably the party. for the most part. We've got bad people doing bad things at all levels, and I decided I'm going to run because Rob Portman was contributing to that. He was not doing what we sent him to Washington to do. As I've said before, I don't believe he's a statesman. I believe he's a sellout and a turncoat. When he's standing there at the podium with Biden and Romney, that's a problem for me. We should be talking about him, not me talking about the party. So originally I decided to primary Rob Portman. I'm the only person in the race who did that, because I didn't like the job he was doing and I thought I could do a better job. He's a Romney Republican. Now that I've learned about this insider game within the party, it's terribly rigged and it's terribly corrupt to its core. And so in addition to running, I'm exposing this and taking action to clean it up, to show people how I will work in Washington. I like to say that if my opponents are afraid to call out corruption in the ORP, they're afraid to call out lockdown Mike DeWine, right? This is amateur corruption compared to Washington, D.C. If they're afraid to fight that, I mean, they're not going to do anything that the grassroots growing base of Republicans who are fed up with what's going on will do. So that's why we're doing this. Now, in terms of me running, I'm 63 years old. I've had a very successful career. I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I understand policy, and I've got some money and time. This is the highest and best use of the time and the resources that God has given me. I am not going, if I lose the primary, I'm not done here. Okay, I think I have found my calling for the rest of my life. I'm a healthy 63, but honestly, my time can better be used either in Washington or working as a conservative activist to fix our party.
Mark, I appreciate you being here tonight. Can I make a safe assumption and say that you liked Ronald Reagan, or you like Reagan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I liked Reagan. Yeah.
So Reagan, said, if you agree with me 80% of the time, you're my friend. I think what will grow our party is when we focus on that and not cheap attacks on Republican elected officials. Obviously, yes, if somebody does something corrupt, illegal, unethical, we should distance ourselves from that person as quickly as we can run. But bashing Republican elected officials who you may not agree with 100% of the time, who aren't you, I don't think is the healthiest way to grow the party. And I would just give you that thought: if you look to join the world's most respected, august, deliberative body, where I assume you also probably like the filibuster, maybe not.
Correct.
But you have to get 60 votes to get something done. And just food for thought there, because I consider myself a Romney Republican, and I wear that as a badge of honor. I think Romney's a great statesman, and you're not going to win many friends bashing fellow Republicans. And I think that's to the detriment of the previous president, because he did accomplish some things, but he spent too much time bashing Republicans instead of leading the party in the country. So no question.
So let me ask you a question, though. What are my cheap attacks?
Bashing Romney, as you just did, and bashing Senator Portman. So that's it. But we're not. You're not.
But this is. I think this is an important topic. I think we need to be having honest discussions about what is going on in our party. I'm speaking truths. People don't like that. Here's what I told people when I started running. I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to say the silent part out loud. For the people that don't have the thick skin like me, the financial resources and the time, the people who are afraid of being canceled for speaking out, for being ostracized for speaking out by their neighbors, for their kids being bullied and things like that. And I actually do not see our party supporting them, right? House Bill, HB 248 is an example. we should be, we should all be disgusted that bill hasn't been put into law.
Mark, to go back to your opening statement, you said you're the most electable of all of the potential candidates. Can you spend some time on that, please?
Well, so I'm not a career politician, and I've got no connection to the inside. And I've got plenty of examples now of how the Ohio Republican Party and some county parties around the state have absolutely put up roadblocks. Rather than saying, we'll give you a fair shake, they've shut me out. Before I started criticizing anybody, it started the minute I registered. I tried to get into a boot camp that the ORP was putting on. And 3 days before, I was shut out because we're not willing to support your candidacy at this time. I'm sorry, but in my world, the Ohio Republican Party isn't designed to pick candidates and who's running. It's to give them a fair playing field upon which to suggest to voters what their ideas are, and may the best person win. Okay? So my attitude and my messaging right now has evolved over time. This wasn't my messaging at first. I expected cronyism. I expected corruption. I'm a pretty cynical guy. But it's 10 times worse than I thought it was. Now, answering the question that I didn't answer before about working with other people, I grew a company to $100 million in revenue and 800 employees. We employed thousands of people across the country. I negotiated deals with Ford, GM, Toyota, Nationwide Insurance, Cardinal Health, Limited Brands, Eaton, Diebold, KeyBank, Biogen, Stellus Pharmaceuticals. You don't do that by pissing people off, okay? You do that by bringing people together, but having adult conversations and not telling people, be quiet, sit down, it's not your turn yet. And that's what we do in the Republican Party. Outsiders, it's like if you're in a church and someone comes as a visitor, a seeker, you don't tell them that everything they say is wrong and tell them to just shut up and sit down and embrace your faith. That's what we do in the Ohio Republican Party. And I'm just going to call it out. I may be successful, I may not be. It's not going to be the end of the world either way.
Mark, this is Roby Schaapke from Grove City.
Hi, Roby.
Take this a little different
okay.
Back here. You talk about having a grassroots campaign.
Yep.
Can you tell us what you've done in the grassroots to help other Republicans? Have you knocked on doors? Have you gone to meetings? Have you participated in Republican events on there? Could you give us a little bit of that background to see how you handled the grassroots?
I have not been involved in Republican politics until I started to run, Roby.
Oh, okay.
Right. I was busy building a business and putting people to work. But, you know, there's nothing I can do about that history, right? I didn't do it. I actually trusted the Ohio Republican Party. I outsourced, politics to them because I thought there were people a lot smarter than me understanding what was going on there and doing the right thing and bringing up a crop of young people who were principled and had character. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to run, and I found out that my perception of the Ohio Republican Party was incorrect. And so I can't do anything about that history, but I can tell you that, since then, we're running a dual path campaign. I'm trying to get elected, but at the same time, we're trying to leave Ohio better than we found it. So we helped citizen candidates run for school board because our education system is in ruins. So we helped grassroots candidates run for school board. We helped them understand getting ballot access. We helped them understand all of that. Then we gave them tools to use when they ran, a tool called Contract with the District. And then I helped, I think I was probably the number one person that forced the Ohio Board of Education to repeal their racist Resolution 20. So, and then now, to fix these problems, I'm about fixing problems. We're finding grassroots citizen candidates and we're supporting them to run for state central committee. We're giving $250 to anybody, the first person in a district to bring us a ballot access proof and sign our pledge of the 4 or 5 things that we want to see, like roll call votes and financial transparency. They get $250 from me personally. And then once we know who's got access, we're going to do mailers in those Senate districts for them to get their name out and raise their name recognition. So that's what we're doing. I'm trying to fix the Republican Party in Ohio.
Mark.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Robbie.
John, did you have a question? Don is frozen up on my screen.
Hi, Christine Houck from Grove City as well.
Hi, Christine.
Thanks for being here. I just wanted to kind of go back to, first of all, we're all Republicans in the room tonight, so we all share, I think, some common values. And of course, when you decide to run for office, you definitely have opinions of your own. That you don't decide to run for office if you don't feel passionately about something.
Right.
But you spoke a little bit ago about the relationships you've built with people, and I'm wondering if you could speak to what you're hearing from Ohioans as you're out talking with people, and what's important to them, because after all, that's the people that you're going to go and represent.
The number one problem I'm hearing about, when I really cut through it, is they're fed up with corruption in government at all levels. There was a recent poll done of Ohio and Michigan voters, and that was the number one issue. So I'm not surprised. I mean, and that poll was done bipartisan. It wasn't Republicans, it was everybody. They're fed up with corruption in government. And so that's what I'm hearing about. I mean, I am talking to people.
How about number 2 or 3?
Number 2 would be election integrity. That's a real concern. And I run into lots of people who say, why should I even vote? I'm like, whoa, time out. You've got to vote. It's the only thing. We've got to overwhelm this problem. And you've got to vote, and you've got to be active. And then the other issue is medical freedom. I'm going to tell you, I'm fighting hard for that. I'm not vaxxed. I'm not getting vaxxed. I'm the only candidate in the race that can say that. And I've got a fairly significant, fervent following because of that. It's a big deal. And they're disappointed with the Ohio legislature, our current General Assembly, because House Bill 248, I mean, they're angry. Now, is that an echo chamber? We all know that, let's say 80% of Republicans are really only Republicans on election day. There's a very small portion of let's call it fervent, committed Republicans, and the rest are going off that slate card, which we're trying to fight as vigorously as we can to have the ORP not do. But we've got a problem because, I mean, if you think about, the average vote in a primary in Ohio is between 600 and 750,000 votes. In 2016, it was over 2 million. But now we're back to that same level. How did we not capture and convert those people? I mean, that's a huge number, right? It's more than the current people that vote, and yet we couldn't convert them. Why was that? Right? They were voting for Trump. I mean, they voted for Kasich too, but they were activated. And we haven't been able to keep them active. We've got to fix that problem. We also have to bring younger conservatives into the mix and not tell them to just sit down and be quiet until it's their turn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark, let me ask you something quickly. I understand from what you just said that you're one of the people who feels that the state Central Committee shouldn't be making endorsements in primaries. What do you feel about, I mean, obviously you're screening here for our endorsement. Do you want us to recommend your endorsement, and do you want the endorsement of the Franklin County Central Committee, or would you want the Franklin County Central Committee not to endorse the U.S. Senate race?
I would love you not to endorse in any race.
Okay. But if we're going to endorse, you'd rather it be you? Is that fair, or you just...
I'll just repeat what I said. I'd prefer you not endorse at all.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I'm doing this interview as part of the process that you've got, right? And I respect that process. It's part of what you've decided to do. I just think that now that I believe that some campaigns like mine, and I'm not the only one, are doing the education job of voters that the Ohio Republican Party and county central committees should be doing. Very few people in Ohio even understand the central committee structure. So we're educating them on that. Try to go to a county website and find out how to run for central committee. That should be right on the front page of every website. If you want to run for state central or for county central committee, or you want to run for state central committee, here's how you do it. It seems to me that we're keeping that secret so we don't have any competition with the insiders. We've just got, if we want to build a big, robust party, we've got to start doing this kind of thing, and it's not that hard. These are some very simple changes, but they're not easy because they're across the entire state. And they're not easy because we've got to change some hearts and minds. And we're going to have to get some people out of some offices that they don't want to be out of. But it's essential. We will have a third party, and that will decimate the Republican Party, and it will make that third party absolutely unsuccessful, and we'll have Democrat rule for the next 100 years if we screw this up over the next year or two. I believe next year is a huge year for us. And if we don't get serious about it and start kind of fessing up where we are and where we want to go, where we come from, where we are, and where we want to go, and do that crisply, we're going to have a problem.
Other questions for Mark?
Yeah, I have a question for Mark. Mark, thank you so much for telling us like it is. My question is, I got a lot of questions here. I know you were talking about the HB bill, House Bill 248.
Mm-hmm.
And I know if you were to become the senator, you wouldn't be voting on that. But
correct.
Would you consider, in 1986, we pretty much had a National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act that was passed to remove liability from the vaccine manufacturers. Would you be willing to support something like that if you were to be in Congress?
Absolutely. See, those waivers are part of what I consider to be crony capitalism. It goes along with this Section 230 of the Federal Communications Act, giving that carve out to tech companies. Mm-hmm. We need to get rid of all of that. We need to level the playing field. We need to get rid of the crony capitalism. Things like the carried interest tax deduction. That's clearly a payoff to those on Wall Street. So we just need to. We need to be running the government with more character and more justice and more morality. We've gotten way off track.
I agree with you there.
But the other two things I'd support is a national constitutional carry bill and a national heartbeat bill.
Awesome.
I'm without a doubt the
Thank you.
the most conservative candidate in this race, in the Senate race. What else can I answer for you folks?
Other questions for Mark? Mark, anything that you'd like to say in the way of conclusion here?
Yeah, so it's not like I'm angry and pissed off all the time. I'm actually a really fun guy, and I think those of you who have met me will understand that. And my campaign, we have a really good time. We've got a really good set of volunteers that's growing, and they're committed, and we don't lose them, and they're activated, and we're fun. But I also know when it's time to be serious, and I also know when it's time to be serious with some energy behind it, not being like monotone. We have some serious problems. I have solutions, I believe, to those problems. I know, like I say to people, this 21-point policy guide, it's my commitment to you. It's not my contract with you, because I'm one of only 100. But what I'll tell you is I'll go to Washington and work on this every day, all day. I'm not going to be doing fundraising and all the rest. My goal would be to be such a great senator that it's a fait accompli that I might be reelected. That people are like, there's just no way we don't want this guy again. If that isn't the case, I will gladly step aside. Ohioans have 6 years to figure out who to replace me with. But in those 6 years, this is it. And I am excited about going to Washington, taking a unique team of people with me and working on these things in a collaborative basis with those who will collaborate, and on a contentious basis with those who won't, whether they're in the opposition or whether they're in our own party. We've got to go. If we win everything back, we've got to go, and we've got to go fast. We don't do that. The Democrats come in and bam, they ruin the country almost overnight. And we sit around twiddling our thumbs. We need to be ready to go before we get there, which is what I'm trying to do. So if you want to go out and have a beer and yuck it up, I can do that. Trust me, I can do that. But I know when to be serious, right? And I think these are serious discussions we're having.
Absolutely. Okay, Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you all. If you need any more questions answered, let me give you my cell, 614-499-0599. Once again, 614-499-0599. Thanks so much.
Thank you for that, Mark. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Good night.
Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Good night.